Hi again, everybody. Welcome into an all-new edition of No Holding Back. It's our Channel 10 reunion tour, and anyone that worked at the station in the late 90s, the early part of 2000 knows the woman that's joining me on my left, Meymo Lyons. Mem, how the hell are you?
Wonderful, Ben.
It's great to see you, and I haven't seen or spoken to you in this form or really any form since you left in the summer of '03. That's when you left to go to Grand Rapids, right?
That's right. That's right.
And
we pre-talked here for just like a minute, but I got to throw this out first.
Throw it out.
This is such a blessing to be able to see Steve Kuhn and Jeremy Ross and Aaron Baskerville, to be able to see you, to bring all this together at this extremely trying and difficult time in everybody's life.
Yep.
And with me, an old bride now, I just wanted to lay this down. It's a blessing, and I'm grateful. And I got nothing but love for what we did and what we all were together. Ask me whatever you want, sugar.
You're going to make me cry. I got a lot of emotion, too, about all those things and, you know, all the things that we went through together as a group. I'm going to read a text that you sent me, speaking of that, if you don't mind. I just got to find it real quick. We were going back and forth because I will say this. This woman is in high demand. There must have been half a dozen people that we worked with in that newsroom. They're like, you got to get Mem on. You got to get, I had to go through her agent twice. I mean, it was $1,000 just to get her on. And I'm kidding. So here, what you sent to me, what did you say? You said, trying to find it. You said, I'm echoing what you said, Mem. You said, be safe and blessed, darling. You always call a lot of us that, and know you're doing an important and wonderful thing during these trying times. Spirit is working through you, kiddo. It's a beautiful thing. And that took me back to, I started the station about a year after you. And I'm curious, what were your first impressions when you and I first met?
You know, Ben, you are very composed, very self-assured, loud, strong voice, but always kind. You were never rude, ever to me. God help Colthorpe, that's another story.
This is what I'm talking about.
I hear you in the hallway. Goldthorpe! Goldthorpe! And that little fucker.
I beat him up.
I would sit at my desk and I would laugh. But that's what I loved about him, because he was all in. He wanted it. There's nothing he wouldn't do. He would help. He would eat all kinds of shit. And you gave him more than a little bit, just more than a little bit. And he did it with so much style. And look what happened.
Yep. Well, I mean, you know, I had 2 jobs in a top 10 market at the time. My first job, you may or may not remember, was writing news at DIV, which looking back was an incredible way for me to start. My second job when I came to join our family at 10 was for a year producing and reporting at Channel 50. And I remember one conversation you and I had specifically. I don't know if you do, but I'm going to share the story. You were giving me shit about, you know, I can't get you a shooter, and, you know, you're high maintenance and you need a camera guy every time, whatever. It's true. And there's a happy ending to it. And I said, look, if you want me to go out and be a reporter, I got to have a shooter. That's just the way I am. It might have been cocky, arrogant, whatever people might want to call it, but I could count on 3 fingers the amount of times, Mem, in all the years we spent together, you told me no. And I might have 2 fingers left. So you always took care of us. Where did that come from with you, specifically in that newsroom? Where did that come from within you?
You know, it is an honor to be in a newsroom. It is a privilege to be in a newsroom. It is a privilege to be with people who want to be there, who are on the job.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's pretty natural. I mean, right? Plus, the shooters also loved going with you. It wasn't like school check.
Jeremy.
Before Jeremy and before Karen, Jan Sardar was the first one to eat it on school check.
He was, you're right.
School check sounded, theoretically, it sounded great because the whole idea was spring the reporter and the photog on the school, unannounced, right, and really see what you've got. Well, it really never totally manifested into that total. We had to give them a word by 10 o'clock in the evening. And by then, anybody can send maintenance in.
Right.
Anybody can scramble some shit and try to make everything look, look pretty. But statistically, local news, people love education when it's done well. It's just like eating your vegetables. It's all part of that, the sports department and weather and news and features. Some of it's vegetables, and there you go. All the children have got to eat their vegetables.
So how did you? So you worked at WITL. For those that are from Lansing, know it as WITL. From what I see and remember, you worked there about a decade. Was that your first job, or were there jobs prior to that for you?
That was my second radio job. The first one was at WILS, which was another FM band, and that was sold. I was broomed, and then. But before all that, I had done voice work. Back in the day.
Back in the day, man.
Once upon a time in the 80s, they used to pony up and have big production facilities in all, like Grand Rapids, of course, in Detroit, even in Lansing. And I was like one of the Meyer voices. I did car dealerships and stuff. So it was a side thing. But as soon as I started news, then I had to get rid of that. But that was, I was at WITL for years, and it was, it taught me news. It taught me it taught me everything. And Greg Capone was my boss, and I did have the best boss anybody has ever had. And to this day, I always say that. I always give him a plug.
Really?
Yeah, he was the best boss I ever had. WITL was a giant. I had every opportunity, and also I was reporting in the morning and then would come back and cut it up and anchor in the afternoon. And then, I became news director and was having babies, more of them. And that kind of makes the course. But I was in radio for a long time, and then it was sold to Liggett. It was the beginning of what we saw around 96, all in the mid 90s, a deregulation of the FCC with radio and television stations, and now you can own and gobble up as many as you want. Well, back in those days, there were limitations on that which you could own. And Liggett came in. Of course, the first thing they wanted to do was, cut the news. And we had 2 full-timers and 2 part-timers, and there was no way I was ever going to stay and do substandard news. They didn't want AP, so famous in the radio world, not in the TV world. But they're interviewing me for the job, and everybody knows the word of the street is Mem is not going to stay with you. This is not going to happen.
Right.
And so he threw that shit out there, and I told him I will scrub toilets in Tiger Stadium with a toothbrush before I work for you, and burn my bridge with Liggett, who owned a shit ton of radio stations. So it was good to get into TV at that time.
So how did it all take place? You come in, you interview, and
no, it didn't work out like that at all. It was at the same time, Tammy McLaren was the news director at WLNS Channel 6.
Okay.
She offered me a job same month as weekend anchor, weekday reporter. I was still young enough, still looked pretty good.
Yeah.
But I had a marriage that was headed for the rocks, and 2 little kids.
Yeah.
Little kids.
Yeah.
And there was just no way. I mean, the money was like $14,000, $15,000. At the same time, I had never applied to Channel 10. Kevin called me
Really?
out of the freaking blue.
No kidding.
Kevin could hire. Kevin could hire.
He did a hell of a job with a lot of
Kevin
us.
knew talent.
Yeah.
He really did.
No, you're right.
And he called me out of the freaking blue. He'd just been talking to people in the town, and they, you know, he didn't have a desk. And it was union, as we all know, and the starting pay was 27. Ta-da! I got little kids.
Right.
So my ego, because I'd been on the air,
Yeah.
I'd been a reporter. I mean, everybody knew who I was in this small town of Lansing.
Right.
WITL was a boomer, and I'd been on forever. So I had to put that to the side for the greater good. Never regretted it for a moment, because, you know, I've been and Libby, and they're the best things in the whole freaking world. And if you're a reporter and you're divorced, there's nobody at home, you can't control your schedule. You can't guarantee when you're going to be there for the baby. We all know this.
Yeah.
You have no control over your time. None. I could not. And well, I would not. I could have, I suppose, but that was not a choice that I ever considered for more than a moment. It was just inconceivable. So all of a sudden I'm plopped into television, and you understand, I've never worked in television.
Right.
And so it was a very, I remember quickly.
We got all the time you want.
Well, news is news, right? News is news, regardless, it doesn't matter the format. But the one thing that I noticed immediately when I moved into television was, and this never changed, the most important people in that room are the photogs. And those are the people
They are.
that Meymo is going to keep happy. Because if the shooters ain't happy, honey, nobody's happy.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
It's right. So to me, and then Stout with sports.
Toy
Why
department.
would you mess with somebody like that?
Right.
You never have to give it a second thought. So to me, it's whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. If he needs some more time, come tell me about that.
Yeah.
This is arguably as fine of a sports department as you will find anywhere. Why do you want to mess with that creativity?
I said for years, ma'am, and I still say it today. I said it to Cooner when we talked. I said back then, and probably, well, if we were all still there, we cover our sports department, and a lot of that had to do with you because of what you just said. Taking care of the camera folks, taking care of us. We covered sports as good as any market in the state. I'm not afraid to say that.
But that was because of you. All I did was get out of your way. And when you work with really good people,
Yep.
right, and there's a tremendous amount of experience, and I didn't have to worry that, you know, you were going to come out of the gate sideways or something, because Tim's there. I don't have to worry about you.
We just had to worry about
all you can do is just get out of people's way in that case. When you've got that set, the best thing for any newsroom manager is to get the fuck out of their way.
Yeah.
Give them what they need, understand the process, trust the process, and get out of the way.
I say that jokingly when we just had to worry about Tim.
All the time.
The thing that I loved about him was, Tim was whether it was me, Jason, when Hess was there, when I started, when John Ross came in, he just always let us do our job. He let us learn. He let us learn through failure sometimes.
Absolutely.
You know, and that was a great lesson for me. You were the same way. You're like, just go out and do it, you know, and you know, whatever it was, you were always there and you always had our back. So the transition, how long did it take you to feel comfortable when you were running our newsroom on that kind of basis?
A week, maybe. It didn't take long.
Yeah, right.
I'm pretty quick study. And you know, there are many things I am not good at.
Yeah.
No talent in it. I love music. I cannot sing to save my soul. Many, many things I'm not good at. But the newsrooms and I have a weird kind of thing. And it's the one place where I seem to be able to walk in and become like water. And I never think of myself as water anywhere else where I can just, I never do. I'm so fiery, water.
Right.
But newsrooms, that's the one place where you get that flow. For me. The only other great love business-wise for me was always the racetrack.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I mean, somebody wonders, why am I so tough? Let me tell you.
Tell us.
That's why I'm so tough. I came up, on racetracks when I was 18 years old. I stumbled onto Detroit race course in Livonia, Michigan. One time it was a jewel of a race course.
Yeah.
I was born in 1951 in Detroit, when Detroit was the all-American city.
Right.
All the dreams of the nation were in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
As GM goes, so goes the country. Well, there was, sports and horse racing, and it was a big deal there. Those years, I've grown up riding horses my whole life, but, never race horses. And I spent, years with them on the road. Gave me more insight into all sorts of people from every echelon. I have broken horses. I used to break horses for Marion DuPont Scott. DuPont and Scott.
Wow.
Those people, because who else owns those kind of horses?
Yeah, right. So who first took you to the track? How did you get into that, and how'd you?
I had a girlfriend, one of my best girlfriends, and she was dating a trainer.
Okay.
And she could get me, and she had he had gotten her a license, a hot walker's license. And he was able to sign me in for a day pass. And one of my heaven moments, I walked onto this backside through the stable gate, and I turned, and as far as the eye could see were barns. And they were all filled with horses. And it was a moment in my life where I thought, my God, this is heaven. For me, this is heaven. And they're all thoroughbreds, and they're all beautiful. And they will actually pay you to shovel the shit. Which, okay. Muck stalls, walk horses, absolutely. I will walk my feet bloody with blisters, and did, before anybody was ever going to give me any kind of shot to get on a horse, because they knew, even though I thought I was hot shit, I'd been riding since I was a little kid. Seriously riding. Twice a week lessons, drill teams, dressage, open jumping, all that kind of shit. Well, you don't know shit as far as racetrackers are concerned. You get there and you ain't nothing. And it's true, it's a different kind of horse. It's like, it's a Ferrari versus, another nice car.
Yeah.
All horses are good for something. I would never badmouth a horse. Every horse has a job, or should.
Are you still involved? You still have that part of your life now?
I watch horse racing whenever it's on Fox, sports. Of course, I read the trades and stuff. I never really post about this because anyone would assume that I have a stake in this. Anyone would assume that I am a gambler. I'm not a gambler. On my fridge, I have a $2 ticket from Justified when he won the Triple Crown.
$2.
$2.
Big spender, man.
I would take Ben and Livy, and I would go to Great Lakes Downs every weekend. We'd, eat in the clubhouse and, watch the races. Our stake was always $20. $20 is what you can lose. And it goes to the racetrack, and it's good for everybody. But more than that's a sucker thing. I've seen things around the country. I've seen people at the end of the races who are gutted because they've got a gambling addiction. And that's me, like, right from the get-go. It's someplace I wouldn't go. It's like shooting heroin in your arm. You gotta have your boundaries.
Right.
But it was good for me. I, spent several years there, and it made me tough and made me strong and made me an even better writer and made me tough enough to do news.
That's awesome. So dealing with a bunch of 20 somethings like myself at the time and all the news folks, I mean, you probably had more interaction with the folks in news than us. I mean, there were times where, obviously there was a lot of things, the Bobby Williams story and Ron Mason and, when he retired and Bobby was fired, there were a lot of different things, but that was easy based on what you're telling me about what you did with the horses and the things that went into that, right?
Oh, yeah. Working with young people, that's wonderful. That's just the best. You know what? The best thing is when they come back around. And you find out that you have actually, my goal was accomplished. Certain things with certain reporters, there was a mission. Aaron, when I listened to Aaron is absolutely right. I kicked his ass like it was my job.
Yeah.
Every day for, well, we were together for 2 years. I suppose I let up some, but when he first came in, Kevin has shown me his tape, which was a non-tape. And it was all Steve Baskerville's son, Steve Baskerville's son, Steve
Right.
Baskerville's son. So before I ever laid eyes on him, I knew two things. If I didn't like him, if I thought he was just going to be some shit who thought he was going to have life handed to him, we were not going to do well.
Right.
And if he wasn't, he had to find his own name. Everybody thinks, oh, how great, somebody, has juice and opportunities like that. But we know in the real world, what do people say? Oh, you're only there because you're your dad. That's what everybody says, even if they don't say it out loud. And
Yeah.
I say things that nobody says out loud.
Yep.
And so he walks in and he's this beautiful kid, stunning, kind-hearted, sweet, does not give a fuck about the news. Not a fuck about the news. He's a sports kid.
Right.
He's a sports kid.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, yeah, we had, very different from Jeremy, who came in, handsome kid, kind of geeky, totally prepared. He knew the players, he had read up. He was from day one, this little fucker knew what he was going to be walking into. It was wonderful that the two of them became so close.
Yeah.
I used to love seeing that because they balanced one another so perfectly that Aaron came to love and appreciate the news, and admired Jeremy's writing skills.
Yep.
Aaron was never going to be a pounded out long form journalist. That was not going to happen. It was not going to be his forte. And if I'm going to be good at my job, I'm going to see what race you're going to be running in.
Yep.
And not put you somewhere where you can't win. For Jeremy, it was, nobody was ever more earnest in wanting it. Nobody was ever. I love that kid. Let me tell you, I worry about these kids.
Yep.
I worry about these kids. I worry about them.
Yeah. When I talked to Nick Lefebvre, you were gone when Nick came in, but You know, I thought he was jokingly saying to me, he's like, every now and then I go see a therapist, Benny. And he kind of said it in passing. And I don't make light of that, ma'am. I don't. You know, we both battled our own, you know, demons with alcohol. So I'm not going to ever, you know, the way he said it at the time, it just didn't make sense. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I circled back, and to your point, and Jeremy said the same thing, you know, like, because I asked these guys, I mean, I remember watching the riot, the first time that riots happened in 99. And I remember Jam, I stayed after. I was married at the time, and my wife was out of town with her family. And I was like, you know what, I'm sticking around, man. And I'll never forget watching that in the newsroom. And all of a sudden, Jam falls over, and the camera, whoever was on the camera, they like dropped the camera, they got tear gassed. I mean, I give these guys, these men and women that do that, so much credit in the society that we're living in now. And I know that's what you're touching on there.
Well, actually, even without, yes.
Yeah.
Well, specifically now,
yes,
of course. And Mara McDonald, she was not with us, but she was over at Channel 6. I'm telling you, what a gal.
She, if I may, she is the reason I ended up at Channel 10. I don't know if you ever knew that.
I never knew that.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I know we've talked about a lot, but I came from Channel 50 as a producer and reporter. So that was the year Michigan played in the Rose Bowl, and Tim Swore was the sports director at 50 because Ray Lane, I know you remember Ray. A lot of the reason I'm the way I am and have been in my career, ma'am, is because of people like him, people like yourself. There's other people that I've worked with and for, but Ray had an enormous impact on me. And so he had been gone. I worked with him for his last 6 months. And so Tim went to the Rose Bowl to cover Michigan, and the Lions, believe it or not, were actually in the playoffs. Laugh if you want. So they played in Tampa, and I covered that. Mara was working part-time on the desk at 50 on the weekends, probably reporting with you guys. And she said, hey, your stuff's really good. Send your tape to Kevin Reagan. About 3 months later, I got hired. Because
wow. That is, I never knew that.
Yep.
And that is very cool.
Yeah.
First time, another snapshot in my mind.
Yep.
Mara McDonald, with whom I've never worked, somebody I worry about. I remember the first time I saw her on Channel 6.
Okay.
I knew she had it like that.
Yeah. Right.
She was at the corner of the cop shop across from the cab, and it was freaking windy like it gets downtown Lansing. And she just freaking started, and her hair is everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all over her face and stuff. But she never stopped, and more importantly than that, she's intelligent. She's wicked smart, and she gets it. And even with all the incredibly green, it was so freaking obvious. Well, before very long, I'm watching for Mara McDonald like I'm watching for Brad Edwards, because that's how I get her.
Yeah.
That's the upshot of my day in that newsroom, is when I, turned to look at what they're leading with. Yep. When we had a noon, remember yeah. And then when that was gone at 5 and 6 o'clock, I was always very interested. And when I saw that it was Mara fronting something or Brad's fronting something,
right,
you absolutely have my attention. And I just hope to Jesus that I'm not fucked right now. And from time to time, I mean, these are first-class reporters. They're just going to give you an ass whooping.
Right. Yeah.
Which is going to make me look around to see what reporter in this room is even close to maybe ever having that information that's torturing me now, that I got to slop up like last week's potatoes.
It's that competitive nature. I love that.
Oh,
we had that too in sports.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We love kicking their ass. And we did it routinely when I was around with our group.
Absolutely.
So I get that. So where did Mara and Kevin work? Did they work together at 6? or do they just know each other mutually?
Kevin was never at 6.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
And I don't, so I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you ever talk to Kevin?
You know, I talked to him, I want to say it was probably, when did he have the stroke, ma'am? Do you know offhand? 2 years ago, 3 years ago? There was a young man that I met that was, you know, trying to stop drinking, and he reached out to me, and, you know, a mutual friend, you know how the program works. And I was talking to Kevin a lot because this guy was somebody Kevin was really looking at. And it was interesting in those conversations, as you know, we had it out many a times, as most people that work there. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And it was kind of cool in a way, man, because it kind of, and I never felt like, oh, he owed me an apology or I owed him an apology. It was more just kind of, we showed our appreciation for one another and all the shit we went through together. You know, it was really cool. It was really cool. There was no bad blood at all. It was just cool to talk and, you know, not be an anchor in sports or whatever the hell I was, an anchor reporter, whatever. It just man to man, it was really good. It was really, it was spiritual for me, you know?
Reconciliation always is.
Yeah. And I don't think he's in very good shape now from what I've heard. I don't, you know exactly, but Jason and I played golf a few times the last 2-3 weeks because we live about 2 minutes from each other now. So he's doing with Ida still in Lansing and him going to Detroit. He's kind of doing what I did when I was married and living here. And I went to Lansing and my ex-wife went to Oak Park. So it was kind of in the middle. So I've talked to Jay a little bit about it. And, you know, he said he's, you know, he's not in the greatest of spots, but, you know, he's still going. So do you know anything more or not?
No, I have not. The last time I saw Kevin was at the governor's Christmas party in 2005. And he happened to be there, and I happened to be there from Wood. But, you know, with all the good word, find a better word. All the frictions or difficulties that can occur, at the end of the day, I made peace a long time ago with this person hired me. Yep. And with many other experiences, you know, right? And you just have to look at, say, well, no, there was, you know, some bullshit attached to this and whatever. But at the end of the day, well, this person gave me the shot. Yep. You know? Yeah. And it's so I can have all sorts of opinions about whatever, and at the end of the day, I'm damn glad I got that shot. Yeah, me too. Good enough karma for me.
Let's have a smoke, man. We used to go out on that side all the time. I got one ready.
Oh God, you know what? Everybody has quit. David has quit. David Andrews, what a sweetheart.
He's on the list. I'm going to get him and Andy on and some other.
Oh my God.
My buddy Paul Lashinsky, remember Paulie, of course.
Of course I remember Paul. Yeah. And she's pregnant with their second one, and he's got this first little thing. This is so cool. I get to go down the list and I see Donnie Hops and his family. I see Tennille and her family and her kids. Tammy Pitts, you know, oh my God, her mother. I knew Tammy's mom. Tammy's mom was an educator for decades. Okay. And she, when I was at WITL, she had choir, she had kids, she was all about community involvement and stuff. Well, she would call me, and she was so charming and so persuasive. I sent her a camera down to Jackson. This is when I was at WITL. Well, before long, this woman, who is a good and saintly woman, is humping me like a fucking dog every time she has got some kids doing something at Jackson Public Schools. God bless her. The irony, and she was just a dear woman, lived a wonderful long life. That, you know, I here's Tammy, you know, in the newsroom is her kid. You know, the synchronicities are pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, it really is. What about some events that there's men behind the smoke like we used to be in the parking lot. What about some stories that you know, that the newsroom that, you know, you were a part of, that you still, you know, stories you'll never forget that the station covered and things that they did?
You know, what always comes to mind, and it's not a happy thought, but the hardest but most intensely ingrained day was 9/11.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, and we were all there.
Yeah.
And there was nothing, I mean, it was as difficult of a day as you could ever have. And for me, and God bless Kevin, we're all blown away. I'm sitting in the newsroom, of course, surrounded by the shit. The whole country is blown fucking away.
Yeah.
Towers haven't even dropped yet. And Kevin calls out to me and he says, and he's right, call MSU, I need a structural engineer. Now he was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't even 9:15. And all that shit happened at 1:45.
Yeah.
Those are the sorts of things that allow me to forgive any of the hostilities and problems that, you know, might have occurred in the newsroom. Because at the end of the day, and he was freaking right, but I remember making that phone call and just feeling like an asshole. And a gal, and I don't remember which one, lovely women at MSU who were fielding their people all the time and hooking us up. And she gets on the phone and I tell her what I want. She said, Meymo, I cannot believe you're asking me this. And I said, yeah, you got to do it. Nobody wanted to work. Everybody's, right? You're blown away. The information around you, you're brokenhearted. To the best of your knowledge, your country is under attack.
Yeah.
But you've got to go cover this, the story. It was as tough as it gets. I remember Jam making jokes in the hallway because, of course, his people are Persian, right? You know, his people are from Iran. He was born in Chicago, but I don't even remember what the joke was. But I remember, and everybody laughed, and nobody had laughed fucking hours. You know, those are my memories. Those fine little things. When you spoke to him, he talked about the gal who fell backwards off that 20-foot wall and cracked her head open. When he said that, I remember the moment when he was telling me the story the first time, first face to face, and I saw in his eyes how deeply upset he was. There is not a news person, there is not a photog who does not suffer PTSD. There is not a reporter. No such animal lives. No such. Anybody wonder why I was so tough on everybody, and so exacting and so demanding? Because it's tough. I learned years ago some of the worst freaking stories. One was at WILX. I mean, how do you process this shit? It's a birthday party. A grandfather backs up and kills his 2-year-old granddaughter who had run around the back of the car. So the only way I know how to do that, and it sounds perverse, to me, you know, flat kid, and here's the address. Let's build something out of this about backup cameras, about whatever we have to. But in my mind, that cannot be a toddler. It cannot. So I have learned that coping mechanism, and I don't think anybody can survive the constant flow of human pain and struggle and suffering without having that switch in the same way you would if you were a doctor in an emergency room. You cannot cry over everybody. You cannot. And as a reporter, as a photog, you're with that shit for a length of time. I'm thrilled when I hear about major corporations providing free counseling. Fuck yeah, you cannot send people out into this.
Yeah.
During COVID and the protests and some of these riot situations, plus every freaking day in any American city. You cannot do that without dealing with their pain. It is inevitable. It is part of the business. It's a cost of doing business. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you always had a way with words and you still do. One of the things when I talked to Jeremy, I asked him today, I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Leave it to me, a sports guy.
No, that's good.
But, and I love hearing your perspective, and I agree with this. You probably told me this more than once. I got a few things I wrote down from him and I wrote down on my own that I remembered, like Memoisms. Toughen up, sweetheart. That was one of the first ones he said to me. Toughen up, sweetheart.
When he first came, I don't know if he remembers this.
I remember I always told him to stick to news.
He
Instinct was right, man.
The plus side for him is that he'd done enough sports, a little bit of sports in college and stuff, and a little play-by-play.
Yeah.
So he had done the necessary work on concentration and focus. If you're doing play-by-play, you must be absolutely in the moment. Otherwise, you cannot do it. You cannot be a split second out or you lose. It
Live
is
in the moment.
Zen level of meditative thought. You must be present or you can't do it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. When he came, I remember him. God bless him. He was always dear and probably a genius, for real. But he wasn't the hard. He wasn't tough. He was emotional, and he also was kind of itchy when he first got there. You know, like you know. And again, I love him dearly. He's the kind of person.
I know you do. He loves you too.
You know, it would. I can remember one day. He'd only been a few days. And his nose was running and his eyes were running.
This ought to be good.
You sick, Ross? And he said, oh, I just got allergies. I've, had them my whole life. And I think I said, well, you don't have them anymore. And that was pretty much the way I dealt with everything with him.
Yeah.
I didn't want any of his preconceived notions of his limitations to be factored in my fucking space. You go be snotty outside. You go be any of those things outside. But here where you want to be the most you, here where you're making no freaking money.
Yep. Yeah.
Here with this extraordinary education.
Yeah.
Then get out of your head. Yep. All of our limitations, right? This is shit we put on ourselves. And most of it is not real. And particularly when you're dealing with youngins in their 20s, they're just figuring out who they are.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yep. What do you remember about Keith Bassler?
Oh, he was so dear.
Again, you know me, like and the affection that I showed for people I work with at time, like with Jason, I beat the hell out of him like you beat the hell out of reporters. I did. I kicked his ass. And he'll tell you that. And because I had people do that to me, but I love Keith, man. He is like, and there's a lot of other people I want to ask you about. I'm not
super gentle.
These people I remember.
Keith, I still have a poetry book that he gave me, actually.
Really?
Of haikus, yeah. Actually, he gave it to me to give to Libby, who gave it back to me when I moved. I carried it around. Keith was a safe pair of hands.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what was going on,
Yep.
Keith, it's not gonna bother him.
Daddy Eddie.
Everything's fine. Scoobic Shooter, the two of them did their thing together. Never heard an unkind word out of the man's mouth. Ever.
Yeah. Well, let's keep moving on. Steve Kuhn.
Steve is one of those light beings. It's up there so you can't see it, but he had a little picture of Jesus laughing long ago by his gear in what was in the Photons room. Steve Kuhn is full of light. Steve Kuhn was the male counterpart to my, albeit much older, female energy. Kevin was doing his thing.
Yeah.
Prime directive was always to keep him the fuck out of the newsroom, right? It was a general rule. Well, me twice a day, I got it. I will do whatever you tell me, but for the love of Jesus.
Right.
Because it's that kind of energy is not always.
Right.
But Steve, nobody's better. Nobody's a better man. Nobody's a better shooter. Nobody's a better colleague. Nobody has a cooler head when everybody is losing their shit.
Yeah.
Uncanny ability to step out of drama. Uncanny.
Yeah.
And headed up the union. Were you there when we were going on strike?
Yeah.
Did you yeah,
I was there.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's another one of those moments because I cleaned out my freaking desk.
Yeah.
We were, remember, it was resolved within what, less than 90 minutes?
Yep.
It was hellacious. I was scared shitless. I was divorced and had absolutely no clue on how I was going to live on $100 a week strike pay.
Yeah.
And what was crazy was, remember Elizabeth Woolley? Who ended up getting hired.
I do remember her, yeah.
But she was first brought in as a scab.
Yeah.
And trotted down the hallway to go to the little audition. If this had been a less civilized group of people, that would have gone very badly.
Yes.
Very badly. Nobody held anything against her. She was at this little cable place in Meridian Township at the time.
Home TV.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. And actually, she ended up. I've not talked to her in forever, but she still does TV in Southern Illinois somewhere.
Where at?
Southern Illinois somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Little small town.
Okay. Carbondale or something like that, maybe?
What,
Carbondale, maybe something like that? Southern Illinois? I'm a geography nut.
It's wherever the college is. Where's the freaking college?
Southern Illinois?
Where it is?
I'm talking about Illinois, the University of Illinois? That's in Champaign.
Wait, no, she's in Southern Indiana. She's not in Illinois, Southern Indiana. She's in bumfuck Indiana, who cares? That's where she is, Ben. Move on.
There's another memism. So you mentioned Elizabeth from Home TV, so that leads me to another photog I want to ask you about. So you may or may not remember this story as well. I forget what I went to shoot, but it was the first time I went out and shot a story at the station. I should remember that. I started on June 10th of 98. So I come to you. I knew I had to go through you to get a camera and all that stuff. And the conversation that we had earlier that I referenced, I think was a couple of weeks later. But so this first day, I come out, I'm like, ma'am, who am I with? Well, I probably called you Memo then because I wasn't on a nickname basis with you at that point, right? And so I hadn't earned that yet. And you go, you're going to be with a new guy, Jeff Manders. Wait, so I'm waiting. He comes in to start a shift. He comes in, he's got a red bandana on, his jeans are ripped as shit. He's got a chain hanging from his wallet. He's wearing Chuck Taylors. He has no socks on. I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
And
but man, can he shoot too? And I became very good friends with Jeff.
He's wonderful. And he fell in love with Carrie.
Yes.
Right underneath my nose.
That's right.
So many of these love things I didn't know. Somebody would tell me, and the next thing you know, they're in love, and then they get married, and they've got a family. How much better than that? Evan Leonard and Emily Wagner from Chick 6 when they met, and happily married. I mean, how freaking cool is that? And I see the pictures of their kids, and I think, God, that's good. Right? I mean, that's what life is. It's your family. It's people you love. It's the colleagues that you look at and you just think, oh, what a wonderful creative time in my life. What a blessing this person was. And then you feel that are reciprocal, and they believe I was a blessing.
You are and were.
I don't think it gets better than that. How does it get better? How does it get better down here than that? What feels better? Nothing feels better than that. I love prizes. Lord knows I love to win. But nothing feels better than that. That's the prize.
Do you remember that day or not? You probably don't. That I referenced.
Were you in Manders?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was deliberate.
Like, who the hell's
God bless you, son, but you were always very conservative. I assumed probably a Republican. Love you anyway.
Well,
it doesn't matter. You do not have to commit, and
I'll say this: my favorite president of all time in my lifetime is Ronald Reagan.
Of course he was. You told me that before, my darling, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Yeah. My love for you has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Likewise.
There you go.
My love for you has the way the person you are, the way you handle things, the way you helped us all grow up in that newsroom, ma'am. And I speak for everybody that was in there. I mean that 100%. I'm honest to God.
Killing me here. You're killing me. What was cool about Manders is that I knew that would be the response. I mean, it was obvious. He was the antithesis of you. He also had piercings,
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and absolutely. And I just thought, well, this is fucking perfect. Let's see how these two do together.
Oh my God! And we ended up being
It was brilliant. You guys loved being together. The work was always wonderful. You were again the right energy. Is not necessarily the same energy.
Yep. He was like Keith. He was like Cooner. He was like other guys that I'm not trying to leave people out intentionally, but I spent a lot of time with those three guys. And, Jeff was that way. I mean, and I don't know what he's doing now. But man, did he care and could he shoot too?
Everybody cared. What Steve Coon said, nobody phoned it in. Nobody phoned it in those years. Nobody. Phoned it in.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, well,
it wouldn't have done. It wasn't going to do. It wasn't going to do anywhere. It certainly wasn't going to do, in the sports department. And I can get along with all manner of human. I cannot get along with that.
With what? I'm sorry.
People who want to phone it in. People who want to just,
No. Same here.
The aberration in the team was Phil Dawson.
Philly.
Tremendously skilled, experienced, and when Phil wanted to deliver, honey.
He did.
Honey.
Mm-hmm.
He could lead a newscast. And I'm always looking for, if that lead's not good, what's going to happen? They're gone.
Yep.
All the other work is gone with it until it's time for weather and sports. They're gone from it. Yeah. But he was, Phil was, he was an example of somebody who was so unhappy and frustrated with himself and with life that he had just gotten bitter. And he loathed Kevin. I mean, right? That is like the big war. If ever there was a war at Channel 10, it was Phil Dawson and Kevin Reagan, right?
Yeah.
And I never had words with Phil. Phil and I walked around one another. Phil and I were careful with one another.
Probably a good thing.
It was a damn fucking good thing, because what Phil would do, Phil would just infuriate me, and yet I had enough respect for his skill, and I understood the game. When you understand what the freaking game is, that it isn't about me, it isn't about the producers, it's about nothing more than to mess with Reagan. Well, there'd be times I'm waiting 3 o'clock, I need that reporter.
Yeah.
This is a tiny shop.
Yep.
I need that body, and he sure as fuck is never going to come in early.
No.
And what Phil would do,
No, he never came in early.
oh my Jesus, not for anything or anybody. What he would do, if you recall, he would slow walk everything.
I remember.
And I do not mean just metaphorically. He literally would slow walk, getting his soup when he first came to work without a single pitch, without being the least bit spun up. All the 101 rules. Do not come into this newsroom and ask me what the fuck is going on. Because apparently you haven't done your job. You better have a bead of what's going on in the world, and most definitely what might be going on in your world.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that was hard because he was older, and because he was so talented, he does him good.
Oh, I know.
remember watching him anchor. I don't know. I don't remember who was producing, but I watched him on the air just go. I have been.
Well,
I just couldn't freaking believe it. And I mean, and this thing is, and it was, you know, he was so dramatic, and it was such a big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely a guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember who the unfortunate producer was, but
I don't know. There were.
It was back in.
Yeah, sorry, ma'am. There were about 20, I think, we had on the weekends. I mean, me and him sat. We obviously have a much different perspective. I got a funny story I'm going to share though about Phil. You know, I sat next to him doing hundreds of shows over the time I was there. So, and I always got along with him good, man. We had a lot of fun. And
oh, definitely.
Yeah, the one story that I remember, I'm not sure if you were there or not, but you'll tell me if you were. So there was a night he went out and he was wearing a skull cap in his live shot at 11. Were you around for this or not?
I don't know. You tell me more.
So one night, I want to say it was a black skull cap. It was a solid black, like my shirt, just solid black. So Kevin, you know, says, "No more skull caps, damn it. No more caps. I don't like the look." And if I have this wrong in any way, I know one of our former colleagues will correct me. But this part I know was right. I want to say it was the next night, or it might have been after his 2 days off when he came back in to report. He goes on the live shot, and they pop him in the double box, and he's wearing a blaze orange skull cap. I'm like, what is this guy doing, man?
Which is why I never fought with him. Right. You know, it would just drive me crazy because he could have done so much more for himself professionally. But yeah, he's your zero fuck guy. And if it messed with Kevin.
Oh yeah, they were like a coyote and a bear. They weren't like cats and dogs.
There were a couple of times I thought that somebody was going to swing.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. So why did you leave? Why'd you leave in 03? Money, period.
Money,
that was it?
money.
Yeah.
Money. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank God it was a union shop with all those other things considered, but I divorced 2 little kids. I wasn't going to get a big bump.
Right.
And, you know, the only way around that would have been to go on the side and say, oh, create a new title for me and take it out of the union and all that, which was something that was floated to me. I would never do that. I would never do anything to weaken the union. So I would TV, you know, the money was right. And, you know, I signed a contract before I left. Again, little kids, you know, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah.
So you go to WITL TV, which is flush with reporters and flush with money and flush with toys and flush with people. Completely different in that way. Reporters who were not young and green,
Yeah.
and even if it wasn't, you know, if it wasn't like Ross and Baskerville, where they were literally news virgins, all the other ones, none of the other ones had enough experience to count. You know, 3 years, you're green for 3 years. That's my rule. 3 fucking years full time. And then come talk to me about what you think.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you go to WITL TV and you've got people who have been there and honed their craft. They're a metric shit ton of reporters. They actually have time to work in depth.
Yeah.
Other than sweeps. I mean, it was extraordinary before, you know, the large layoff there. Of course, which has suffered terribly as well.
Yeah.
They had an investigative reporting unit. They had, you know, 8 shooters on every day and, you know, whatever. Everything. And a chopper if you needed it.
I was going to throw that in. Yeah.
We had 2 live trucks and we were lucky if they were both up. Most of the time we could count on 1.
You're talking at 10, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got, well, we did. And back in my day, we had, you know, we had the 2 trucks.
Yeah.
There you go. We were humble but proud people. But for us, it was not factored into the equation. We were not going to play poor. We were not going to do that. We were not going to do that. We were going to get it on the air and it was going to look as good as everybody else's.
Yeah.
Fuck what we don't have. So how will you make up for what you don't have? What you going to bring?
Yep. Well, you said to me last week in one of our conversations via text, you said we did it on guts and love.
Absolutely.
Period. And you're spot on in that.
We did.
We did.
And
we all
wasn't
did.
that wonderful?
It is.
Wasn't
it's
that
cool
wonderful?
looking back.
I mean, I don't think that there's anybody that would look back at their experience there and not appreciate it so much. So much. I got to mention Ryan Rickard in case Ryan ever sees
I remember him well.
Oh, I loved that boy.
Yep.
Let me tell you. He came and saw me when I was at WAMU. And he had taken a hiatus. You know, he's a big PR guy. Makes the
I saw that. Yeah.
But he had taken sabbatical to go do some do-gooder stuff for somebody. I don't remember the name of the group, but it was one of those just flat do-gooder. This was some damn group that was going around the world and building schools, but first, you know, the people have got to build the road and all this kind of stuff. And he did packages on those and showed me, and it was lovely to see him. He was one of the few people who went into PR from news where, God, it was a loss. A lot of people will do news for a while. Most don't stay. And then they go on with it, and they usually did okay. Ryan had real talent. Ryan, you didn't have to tell him some freaking story in some little town out toward, you know, wherever. Fuck me, Bill. I don't know if I were to look something. And it was a pretty damn good story. But he couldn't find people. And as quickly as I was going to tell him in the days before smartphones, try the coffee shop or the barber shop right in the downtown area, he was already there. He knew things like, you better find out where the police drink. You find out where the fire drinks. The fire people drink. You've got to find, right? Just like you know as a sports guy. Yep. You know where to find your people.
Yep.
You know what their particulars are. Mm-hmm. You know them as people. Bob Reynolds, the Bob Reynolds thing. Speaking of sports guys.
He was on my list, but go ahead. Yeah, he was
Well, I'm going to segue now just because we're talking
right.
about sports guys who are great news people. It's a funky word to use there. Great journalists. Bob Reynolds, legendary, sportscaster. Lyons, announcer.
Yeah.
He was the voice of MSU for some years.
Yeah.
After, and then was with JR. He retired and semi-retired, and Greg hired him at WITL to do editorials once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And his sports editorial. And of course, I mean, the man's a legend. He comes in, he cuts it, he leaves, he wins a prize. And he had done that for 3 years. I shit you not. And it must have been awful for the other sports people in the state because he won the top AP prize.
No chance.
And he would write this fucker just in and out.
Right.
So he is the biggest risk I ever took with my career. And it was big. In 91, when Magic Johnson announced he had HIV.
Yes.
In those days, he announced, quote, he had AIDS. He didn't say I had HIV, but the disease was so new, the science was still evolving. We didn't know. He had the press conference. It was a world-shaking event.
Sure
This
was.
was a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
The world's covering it. At that time, it was a death sentence. 1991, you say you have AIDS, now we would say HIV. You say you have that, everybody's, when are you going to die?
Yeah.
I mean, it was that shocking. He was at WITL cutting this story, comes into me, and he's an old guy right now, old guy. I think I'm old. He's much older. Comes to me and he says, I was just with Magic and Cookie last weekend at their home. Of course he was. And she's pregnant. And he said, I thought you'd want to know. And I said, oh, wow. Can I use you? And he said, no, you can't use me. And I said, well, how certain are you? And he said, I'm certain we talked about the baby and she's, showing. So I went down to Greg, the general manager, in his office, and I said, I got it, and I want to go. And it's going to be an anonymous source thing, but, I think we can bet on him. Greg let me do it. So I'm reporting, the story, and the Cookie's pregnant. Nobody's got this. Never. I get a call from AP in Detroit. Somebody had heard it, saying, where'd you get it?
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I'm sure of it, but I cannot give you the source.
Yeah.
And so they said, I send the copy. Can't run it. I said, totally understand. Can't give you the source. Say I'm not going to tell something. That's basic humanity and reporting right there. You never tell. You say you don't tell. You don't tell. So reporting it all through afternoon drive, I go home and I'm waiting for something on the news. Nothing. I'm the only person in the whole fucking planet talking about Cookie being pregnant. 11 o'clock news. And by the time I'm just shit biscuits, And my phone, the landline is ringing. There were no cell phones. That I had, well, there were no cell phones anybody had in 91.
Right.
I'm watching 11 o'clock news, nothing. Well, I can still remember going to bed. And of course, I didn't sleep all night. I just thought, I'm dead. How does nobody have this? How has nobody been able to confirm this? How is this freaking possible? I get up the next morning, run to the TV, still nothing until almost 9 o'clock in the morning when a newspaper in Northern California had it and broke it. And of course, after that, everybody piled up. And Bob Reynolds. The lesson there is, unless it is a legend with a sterling reputation,
Yep.
unimpeachable, do not fucking do
Yeah.
it. That's my sports guy story.
That's awesome. Have you ever shared that with any of the young people back when we were all young? Did you ever share that or not?
I don't remember. I don't remember if maybe.
I don't remember hearing that personally, and I
don't
mean,
know.
You and I spent a lot of time together hanging out, smoking cigarettes, and, you know, but I don't ever remember you telling me that.
I probably, you know, the only reason I'm doing this with you is because it's you and these people. I am not going to do this.
I know you're not.
Right? If
do.
you
I
know
you would
me,
eventually.
you know how open I am, but out there to put it out in the freaking world. Are you feeling the restraint that I'm showing right now? I'm showing restraint.
I understand.
But it's good.
No, it's great. And, you know, I think, you know, go back to what you said kind of in the beginning about the love. And, you know, I've had a few friends there on, you know, Facebook or YouTube that worked at Six. And they're like, man, we didn't have this kind of love. You're damn right you didn't. It just wasn't there. It was a magical group for a lot of years. And, you know, like yourself, I mean, I'm going to be 50 in November. I'm having a hard time with that too, man. But you'll probably tell me to shut up and get tough, right?
Honey, I was still hot at 50. What do you mean? No.
Nevertheless,
No.
you know, and to hear other, you know, hear the people that I mean, they were our competition, you know? They were
Yeah.
our competition. And, you know, Jason and I, you know, made a point, like, we're going to kick their ass every single day, man. You know, Eric and I did too, but it was a little different. Eric was kind of at a different stage of his life and his career. For me, it was the first time to be on air every day instead of doing a show or a package here and there like I did down here where I live in Detroit. And, you know, I'll never forget it, man. I'm sentimental that way. You know, I appreciate all the times that we all slopped through the mud and, you know, did what we had to do to make things work, taping cameras together in the field, microphones, you know, Coon waking me up in hotel rooms, whatever the hell it was, you know. You know, it was just an awesome time, you know, and everybody wanted to see you. Everybody wanted to see you that I heard from. So we all thank you for doing this. There's a few things, if I may. I don't know are you pressed for time?
I live alone. So
You live
no,
alone.
darling. No,
So-
I live alone. All the babies are grown up. That's the horrible thing about children, Ben. They all grow up.
Mine's 19. How old is Ben now?
28. He's gonna be 29. Yes. Ben is 29. Andy's 40. Libby's 26.
Wow. Which one was a Marine? Andy?
Andy was Army. Ben, Marine. He got out in March and had the short-time gig with WITL company that has these disinfectant things for N95 masks. You know, it's the kind of job where they work you, you know, a trillion hours a day, 7 days a week, but they pay you an obscene amount of money.
Really?
And so he did that for maybe 10 weeks or something. So, you know, now he's living with Andy. Everybody's in Northern Virginia outside of DC. So Ben, you know, Andy's married, and my granddaughter is 15, gorgeous. And he's married, wonderful woman, and they had a room all ready for Ben. So Ben had the perfect transition from the military, right? A place to be and a place to spring from. Yeah, he was a Marine for 4 years. He left as a sergeant. Crazy proud of them. Both boys served.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm repping Army right now, you know, so
That's cool.
You know,
that is a beautiful thing. Andy was Army. My dad fought in World War II.
I served 2 in the Navy, so honorable discharge. It was 2 active, 6 inactive when I went in Persian Gulf.
I remember.
Yeah. So I mean, doing Army's football games the last 8 years, that's going to rub off on you. I've met some of the best human beings I met in my life at that place. You know, just I'm not talking specific. I mean, the coaches, yeah, but I'm talking about the men and the women that I've met that go there, that work there, that have went there. I mean, you think I go out on the balcony, this will shock you as I have a cigarette in my hand now. I go out on the balcony, there's a little wing, and I sneak out at halftime and chew up a dart, you know, and the 72 guys, man, they're always drinking scotch. They're always smoking. And they're like, Benny, what do we got to do here? You know, what's going on? What the hell's wrong with the team? You know, it's just, I have great respect for that, man. And I did back then when I knew your son was in, and that's really cool that they did that. So are you in an undisclosed location, or do you care?
No, I live in Austin in the Domain, and the Domain's in the northwest part of Austin. It was built maybe a decade ago, and you know there are shops and then apartments around and above, and God knows what's going to happen to this. I mean, we've got Dillard's and Macy's and Dick's, and there's a Louis Vuitton in here and stuff. Bar across the street, how they're going to stay open, these restaurants. I mean,
Yeah.
pain is coming, honey. These places aren't coming back, most of them.
No.
They're not.
That's what's made me the most, well, there's a few things that have made me, I guess, the appropriate word to be depressed about what's going on, is people that invest, whether they invested their life or not. But really, like I live in a small town in, you know, the western suburbs of Detroit, and there's a lot of small little shops, and they're dead, like you said. I mean, they're never going to come back. And you know, I wanted to get to some of these kind of, you know, current topical things. How is it down there with the virus? What's it like going out and about?
This is Texas. I mean, it's just a swamp. It's a swamp of COVID disease. It's the plague out there because, you know, wearing a mask is just a bit too much for some people. It's just too fucking much. Let's start me off on my boys who went and served this fucking country, did not have to, but it's too much for you to put on a fucking mask.
Yep.
So the 70-year-old broad does not die. How the fuck you? How's that?
Yeah. No.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
I'm right there with you.
You know, so
I am.
yeah, it's dreadful. There are refrigerator trucks outside St. David's Hospital downtown. It's because you can't fit any more freaking bodies in the morgue.
Yeah.
Got a visual of that because I got a pretty good freaking idea what that room looks like. So yes, that's, you know, that's as it is. By the grace of God, you know, I'm healthy. I just don't even know. Must be the cigarettes and the weed. I do not know how I'm so well, but I got nothing, Don. Clean living.
Yeah. How long have you been in Texas?
Going on 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, it's warm. I did, you know, I tried to find a news gig, couldn't find, and then moved here, got another gig, Jam, God bless him, love forever.
Yep.
They were, their assistant ND, you know, was leaving. He said, ma'am, come, and I said, next star screwed me out of one job, another TV job that I should have had, and some little twerp from the corporation interviewed me. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I think I'm riffing, everything's cool. And this little fucker says to me, you sound like a consultant.
Yeah. He didn't know you very well.
My mind, and he put the kibosh on my being hired. I mean, I was in, it was after WAMU. It was a TV station in Richmond, and I would not have needed to move so far away. Jim said, no, I can pave the way. And he tried to do that, but I was already all moved down here. I've already, you know, it's a big Michigan at this age on my own. I had little kids to shovel snow. You know what I mean? I do not have those built-in little minions that I'm feeding and clothing every day. So I stayed here, and honestly, I don't know how well I would do in today's newsroom. I was doing, you know, when WAMU ended for me, I left late in June, right after the awards. They paid me for a considerable amount of time, and because of the NDA, I will not elaborate.
Understood.
It was, as far as work and quality of work, it was the jewel of my career. It
Really?
was where I could mix the best of public radio and television and spot reporting with the most amazing people. It was just extraordinary. We had a second station, WRAU in Ocean City. We had our own reporter there, Brian Russo. That was the toughest thing. You know, somebody new comes in, new GM, new ideas.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the toughest thing. Almost everybody, almost all my people. That was the toughest thing because I couldn't protect them.
Right.
I knew I was going down. There was no question. I knew that from the get-go. Didn't stop me from fighting it out as long as possible and getting this stuff on the way out. Because if you're going to fuck with somebody my age, you better be ready to play.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, whether people like me or not, doesn't matter. My name is good. My name has never been dirty. Ever. Nobody can stand and say, I lied. Nobody can say. And that's a big fucking deal to me. But I couldn't protect these people. And that is very tough. Everybody, you know, when Tara Boyle was, you know, she's executive producer for Hidden Brain now at NPR. People have scattered. We only get these beautiful things. We don't get to keep them forever. It's like our kids. They're always our kids. You already know because he's 19. Right?
I do, and you're taking me back to I swear you're gonna make me cry before I'm done here, and that's okay. But I'm thinking back to when Luke was born, and we had a pretty good relationship at that point. We always did, and when he was born in 01, and I want you to know that there were many things you said to me. I don't necessarily remember everything specifically, but I just remember how stern you were about what it meant to be a parent and, you know, what it meant to have this blessing in your life. And, you know, I mean, one of the hardest things I did in my career was, you know, I was in the American Hockey League for 2 years in Cleveland, and my life basically, it was time to change. You know, it was, you know, I got divorced. My son was 9. I was a mess with drinking. And I finally looked at myself one day in the mirror, ma'am, and said, it's time to grow up. Bottom line. And I was 40. You know, it's time to quit screwing around, you know. And so I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, all those times we went out and smoked and probably bitched and complained about certain things, or we reveled in what we did, or, you know, celebrated it, however we did it, whatever we did, that always meant the world to me. And I'm speaking for myself, and I'm speaking for a lot of other people too, believe me. The impact you had on us was remarkable, not just in what we did, but what you did to help us as younger people, to guide us, to show us the way, to do shit the right way and don't half-ass it. And that will never be forgotten from this guy. So thank you.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
You know, it's always everybody knows I'm a recovering alcoholic. I make it my business that everybody knows, because then nobody pours me a drink or expects me to go hang out at the bar. And
Right.
It's always hard to put. It's easy once you get going with it, but at first, it's hard to admit if you're, you know, if it's booze or Fill in the freaking blank.
Right. Whatever your addiction is.
Everybody's got some kind of Jones today.
Yeah, for sure.
For something.
Yeah.
The more we can admit that and the failings that are part of the human condition, as opposed to this bullshit that we see that is fed to us now.
Mm-hmm.
The Kim Kardashian, no offense to her. I watched her for 10 minutes once and I just thought, well, I can't understand any of it, so I'm moving on.
Right.
I can't.
No, I get it. Yeah.
This illusion, right? So much now, I think is dangerous. I love the technology, you do too. We get to do this. I get to see these guys. This is a blessing. We get to send this love and send all this stuff, and that's the technology, and that's great. But the downside of that, we know what that is. It is this illusion of what life is, and that is not what life is.
Yeah.
We are all basically the same. The same things go on with all of us. The same battles, the same fears, the same needs. We're the same. And if we could just get there, maybe we could move on into greater evolution, greater enlightenment. Man has always been dragged kicking and screaming by the thinkers, by the dreamers. We don't volunteer, most of us. We're brought along. And now it's time to bring people along, always the next group, with our guidance and letting them know that they're not alone. Letting them know what the fuck it means to be an American.
Yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah.
That's some old school shit there.
It sure is.
It's true.
It is very true.
Aspirational. Fuck yes, we are imperfect beings. All of us. But the talk that I have heard, the license for horrendous speech, hateful, awful, manipulative, hustle shit. The attack on news, this whole fake news phenomenon. I was always so proud of what I did for a living.
Yep.
Always. I was proud. I've had innumerable discussions, a lot of them with young people who have no idea what goes into bringing them the content that they're looking at. Have no idea how to discern between what's legitimate and what is just drivel from somebody.
Yeah, because seemingly now, anyone, you got a cell phone and an iPad, everyone's a reporter now, right? They think they are.
Read a freaking newspaper. If you're a Republican, read the Wall Street Journal every day. I haven't paid for some of these fuckers, and I hate to do it because I don't have a lot of money, but I feel so badly because everybody needs money. Read the Wall Street Journal every freaking day. Read the Washington Post. Go through the New York Times. If you've got a local paper still and you're lucky enough in your town, read to and subscribe to the bloody newspaper. They're threadbare in there, and it's the only place you're going to find out about your local news because nobody else gives a fuck about the city council that runs your life.
Yeah, you're right.
Your tax burden.
Right. I don't even work in news, and lately I've had to not watch it so much. I just can't even do it anymore. Honestly, ma'am, I can't. It's just I've gotten to the point where I'm going to believe what I believe, and that's what I believe. I mean, right, wrong, and different. That's just kind of where I'm at with the way things are, with all that stuff like you're talking about. It's hard.
We got to bring the light. We got to bring the light. We have just got to bring the light. Much of what we see, if you look at nothing but a fire somewhere, and you keep seeing the picture of that fire, before you know it, you're going to think the whole goddamn town's on fire.
Yeah.
Really, here's the fire. And it's burning. You got to put out the damn fire. But it all isn't that. The studies are showing us that a third of this crap online is fueled by trolls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't much appreciate, you know, these are people who I know, I've been warned, are deliberately fucking with my head, are messing with everybody's pain body, that little part of the ego that says, react, react, react.
Yep.
Oh, I'm as guilty as everybody else.
Yeah, I am at times too.
When we realize, right, we don't want to be manipulated like that.
No.
And if a third of these people aren't real, I'm going to go back to thinking what I pretty much know about most people. Most people are good. Most people may not be particularly bright, but most people are good.
Yeah.
They are.
Always moving, ma'am. I miss you. Great to see you. Great to see you. And anything else you want to get into, or do we cover enough for? We're gonna make this a weekly thing, me and you. I think.
I think we told our stories. I think we told our stories.
It was great. I mean, I can't thank you
Big virtual hugs, darling.
Sure. There you
It
go.
only keeps. Oh my God. God bless you. God keep you. Whatever spirit moves you. I'm not preaching religion. Find your light. Find your peace there. Find your gratitude there. Every day. Because I get lonely here. I have not been hugged since March. I've never suffered such a thing in my life. Never. I've got my health. Kids are well. I live well. I can pay my bills. Got people who love me. You know what? I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to find some fucking joy and go do something nice for somebody else, because that always makes you feel better. So
Absolutely.
goddamn thing in this life. Feel bad, go do something nice.
Yeah. Well, I've hugged him and I haven't stopped. So just for the record, I mean, back even in March, I'm like, you know what? I'm hugging you, dude. I don't care.
That's fine. I'm sure if I were anywhere near my kids, I would be doing that too.
Absolutely. So you're going to make a lot of people smile and be happy, and they're going to love that you took the time, whatever time. I don't even know how long we've talked. I don't even care. It doesn't matter. But whatever we've talked, it's been incredible to see you. Again, thank you for all you ever did to help me, to teach me, to guide me, to kick my ass. I'm sure you did that more than once. I got to be honest. I thought there were going to be more stories. Like, I remember this time you did this and you were a little shit to me. There probably were. No?
You know, I think with time and love comes perspective. It's just like with your children, you forget how incredibly shitty they are sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's pretty much that way.
Understood. Understood. I get it.
God bless you, Ben.
You too, ma'am, and stay safe, be well, and keep on keeping on. You're an awesome woman, and everyone's gonna love seeing this. So thank you, ma'am. All right, that's been our latest episode of No Holding Back. I got to hold it together here, ma'am, and do this close here. For Meymo Lyons, our good friend from Channel 10, WILX, our reunion tour continues. Ben Holden saying, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time with an all-new edition of No Holding Back.